The black luxury car slowed at the red light, its windows tinted, engine purring softly. Inside, the Mafia boss leaned back, eyes fixed on his phone, until a small shadow darted into the road. The car screeched to a stop. A little girl stood in front of the hood, hair messy, shoes too big, chest heaving as she waved both arms wildly. "Please don't go!" she cried. The driver reached for the horn, annoyed, but the Mafia boss raised a hand. Then the girl looked straight at him through the windshield. Her face went pale. "Dad," she whispered. The word hit him like a punch. He stepped out of the car slowly, heart pounding. He hadn't heard that word in years. Not since the woman he loved disappeared, carrying a secret he was never told. The girl grabbed his sleeve with shaking hands. "Mom is in danger," she said, tears spilling down her cheeks. "They're hurting her. I didn't know who else to stop." The city noise faded. The traffic light changed again, and in that moment, the most feared man in the underworld made a decision that had nothing to do with power or crime. He opened the car door. "Get in," he said quietly. "I'm taking you home. Stay with me until the end." Because what he discovers when he takes them home will shatter everything he thought he knew about his past. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, hit subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Now let's get started. Marcus Romano had ruled the streets of Detroit for 15 years. His name was whispered in boardrooms and back alleys alike. Politicians crossed themselves when they heard it. Rival families paid tribute just to avoid his attention. But standing on that rain-slicked street corner, staring down at a 7-year-old girl who called him Dad, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced since his early 20s. Complete and utter confusion. The child climbed into the back seat of his Mercedes, her small frame dwarfed by the leather interior. She clutched a worn teddy bear against her chest, its fur matted and one eye missing. Marcus slid in beside her, studying her face in the dim light filtering through the tinted windows. The resemblance was undeniable. Her dark eyes, the stubborn set of her jaw, even the way she tilted her head when she was thinking. It was like looking at himself through a funhouse mirror that had somehow captured his features and made them innocent. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Marcus asked, his voice gentler than it had been in years. "Emma," she whispered, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. Emma Catherine Romano. The last name hit him like ice water. Romano. His name. A name she had no right to carry unless... Marcus felt the world tilt beneath him. He thought back to 7 years ago, to Isabella, the woman who had vanished from his life without explanation. The woman who had left him a note saying she needed to protect something precious. He had assumed she meant herself. "Your mother," Marcus said carefully. "What's her name?" "Isabella," Emma replied, her voice barely audible above the hum of the engine. "Isabella Romano now, but she used to be Isabella Martinez before she married you. That's what she told me." Marcus closed his eyes, memories flooding back like a broken dam. Isabella's laugh echoing through his penthouse apartment, her hands tracing the scars on his chest while she whispered about building something beautiful together. The morning he woke up to find her gone, along with any trace that she had ever existed in his world. He had torn the city apart looking for her, but it was as if she had simply evaporated. "Emma," Marcus said, opening his eyes to meet her gaze. "Why did your mother leave? What did she tell you about me?" The little girl's face crumpled, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "She said you were the bravest man she ever knew, but that bad people might try to hurt us if they knew we were your family. She said she had to keep me safe until I was old enough to understand. But now she's in trouble, and I remembered what she taught me about finding you if something really bad happened." Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. Isabella had been protecting their daughter. Their daughter. The words felt foreign in his mind, impossible to process. He had a child, a little girl who had been living in secret for 7 years while he built his empire on blood and intimidation. "Where is your mother now?" Marcus asked, pulling out his phone. Emma's voice shook as she spoke. These men came to our apartment. They said someone owed them money, but Mom said we didn't owe anybody anything. They got angry and started breaking things. Mom told me to hide in the closet, but I could hear them hurting her. They said they were taking her somewhere to teach her a lesson about respect. Marcus's jaw tightened. His mind was already calculating possibilities, running through lists of enemies and rivals who might use an innocent woman to send him a message. But something didn't add up. If these men knew about Isabella's connection to him, why would they risk his wrath? Unless they didn't know. Unless Isabella had hidden her identity so well that she had become a target for entirely different reasons. Did you see these men? Can you describe them? Emma nodded, her small face serious with concentration. One had a gold tooth in front. The other one had a tattoo on his neck that looked like a snake. They drove a white van with rust on the sides. The license plate started with the letters JKM. Marcus typed rapidly on his phone, sending the description to his network of informants throughout the city. Within minutes, responses began flooding back. White van, gold tooth, snake tattoo, JKM plates. The descriptions painted a clear picture, and Marcus felt his blood turn cold. The Kozlov brothers, low-level enforcers for the Russian syndicate that had been trying to muscle in on his territory for months. They were known for their brutality and their complete lack of respect for innocent bystanders. If they had Isabella, then this wasn't about money or territory or business. This was about sending Marcus a message written in the blood of the woman he loved. But how had they found her? Isabella had disappeared so completely that even Marcus's extensive resources hadn't been able to track her down. Someone had given the Russians information. Someone who knew about Isabella's connection to Marcus and had decided to use it as a weapon. "Emma," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the rage building in his chest. "I need you to think very carefully. Has anyone been asking questions about your mother lately? New people in your neighborhood? Strangers who seemed interested in your family?" The little girl bit her lip, thinking hard. "There was this man who started coming to Mom's coffee shop about 2 weeks ago. He always ordered the same thing and sat in the corner booth where he could see everything. Mom said he made her nervous because he asked too many questions about our family. She started closing early when he was there." Marcus felt the pieces clicking into place. Surveillance. The Russians had been watching Isabella, learning her routines, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. They had been patient, professional. This wasn't a random crime of opportunity. This was a calculated attack, designed to hurt Marcus in the most personal way possible. The car pulled up to a red brick apartment building in a neighborhood Marcus recognized, but had never visited. It was the kind of place where working families lived quiet lives, where children played in small front yards and neighbors knew each other's names. It was everything Marcus's world was not. Safe, normal, innocent. Emma led him up 3 flights of narrow stairs to apartment 3B. The door hung open, revealing the aftermath of violence within. Furniture overturned, photographs scattered across the floor, the remnants of a life torn apart in minutes. Marcus stepped carefully through the chaos, his trained eye cataloging the damage while his heart broke at the evidence of his daughter's terror. On the kitchen table, partially hidden beneath scattered papers, Marcus found something that made his hands shake. A photograph of himself, taken years ago at a charity gala. Isabella stood beside him, radiant in a blue evening gown, her hand resting on his arm. On the back, in Isabella's careful handwriting, were the words, "Emma's father, the man I will always love." She had kept his picture. Through 7 years of hiding, 7 years of fear, 7 years of raising their daughter alone, Isabella had kept a piece of him close to her heart. Marcus pressed the photograph against his chest, feeling the weight of everything he had lost and everything he was about to fight to reclaim. Emma tugged on his sleeve, her voice small and frightened. "Dad, are you going to find Mom?" Marcus knelt down to her level, looking directly into those dark eyes that mirrored his own. "Yes," he said with quiet certainty. "I'm going to find your mother, and I'm going to bring her home. But first, I need to make sure you're safe. Sure you're safe? Marcus picked up his phone and dialed a number he knew by heart. The voice that answered was crisp, professional, deadly efficient. Tony here, boss. I need you to mobilize everyone. Full operation. The Russians took something that belongs to me. Marcus's voice carried the weight of 15 years of absolute authority. I want every safe house searched, every contact interrogated, every favor called in. Find me the Kozlov brothers within the hour. Consider it done. What's the play when we locate them? Marcus looked at Emma, who was carefully picking up scattered photographs from the floor, trying to piece together the remnants of her destroyed home. His voice dropped to a whisper that would have sent chills down the spine of any man who knew him. We're going to have a conversation about respect. As Tony mobilized Marcus's network across the city, the crime boss turned his attention to Emma's immediate safety. He couldn't take her into what was about to become a war zone, but he also couldn't leave her unprotected. The Russians had already proven they were willing to target innocents. Emma, sweetheart, I need you to come with me somewhere safe while I find your mother. The little girl looked up from the photographs, clutching one of herself and Isabella at what appeared to be a birthday party. Where are we going? To see someone very special. Someone who's been waiting a long time to meet you. 20 minutes later, Marcus's car pulled up to an elegant brownstone in the city's historic district. The building looked like any other wealthy residence, but Marcus knew it held secrets that went deeper than most people could imagine. He helped Emma out of the car and led her up the stone steps to an ornate front door. Before Marcus could knock, the door swung open to reveal an elderly woman with silver hair and knowing eyes. Maria Romano, Marcus's mother, stood in the doorway wearing a simple black dress and the expression of pure astonishment. "Marcus," she breathed, her gaze moving from her son to the little girl beside him. "Mother of God, is this—" "Grandma Maria," Marcus said softly, "I'd like you to meet Emma, your granddaughter." The old woman's hand flew to her heart. For 47 years, she had prayed for this moment, begged God to give her son a family to soften the edges that life had sharpened. She had watched Marcus build walls around his heart after Isabella disappeared, had seen him retreat further into the cold world of power and fear. "Emma, darling," Maria whispered, kneeling down despite her 72 years. "You look just like your father did at your age. Same stubborn chin, same intelligent eyes." Emma studied her grandmother carefully, then reached out to touch the silver cross hanging around Maria's neck. "Are you going to help Dad find Mom?" "Child, your father could find a needle in a haystack if he set his mind to it. Your mother will be home before sunrise. Mark my words." As Maria led Emma inside, Marcus's phone buzzed with updates from his crew. The white van had been spotted at 3 different locations across the city. Security cameras were being pulled. Witnesses were being questioned. The machine that Marcus had built over 15 years was operating at maximum efficiency. But beneath the familiar rhythm of planning and execution, Marcus felt something new, something that had nothing to do with territory or respect or the careful balance of power that governed his world. Fear, not for himself, but for Isabella. Not the calculated fear of a businessman assessing risk, but the raw, desperate terror of a man who had finally found his family, only to have it threatened. His phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize. "Romano." "Yeah, Mr. Romano. My name is Detective Sarah Chen. I understand you might have information about Isabella Martinez." Marcus felt every muscle in his body tense. The police. In his world, cops meant complications, questions, evidence that could unravel years of carefully constructed operations. But this wasn't about his world anymore. This was about Emma and Isabella. "What do you know about her situation, Detective?" "We found her car abandoned near the warehouse district. Signs of a struggle. A witness reported seeing a woman matching her description being forced into a white van. We're treating this as a kidnapping." Marcus closed his eyes, calculating rapidly. The police investigation could either help locate Isabella faster or interfere with his own more direct methods of persuasion. He made a decision that would have shocked anyone who knew him. Detective Chen, I'm Emma's father. I have information that might help your investigation. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for several seconds. When Detective Chen spoke again, her voice carried a mixture of surprise and professional skepticism. Mr. Romano, I'm going to be direct with you. Your reputation precedes you. If you have information about this kidnapping, I need to know if you're planning to handle this through official channels or through other means. Marcus looked through the window at Emma, who was helping his mother set the table for dinner, as if this was the most normal thing in the world. His daughter, his family, the future he had never allowed himself to imagine. Detective, for the first time in 15 years, I'm more interested in justice than I am in revenge. But if your official channels can't bring Isabella home safely, then yes, I'll handle this my way. Detective Chen's response surprised him. Mr. Romano, I have a daughter too. She's 8 years old. If someone took her, I'd burn the city down to get her back. Give me 6 hours to work this through proper channels. If I can't produce results, then you and I never had this conversation. Marcus found himself respecting the detective's honesty. 6 hours, Detective Chen. Not a minute longer. As the sun began to set over Detroit, Marcus's two worlds collided in ways he had never experienced. His criminal empire worked alongside police resources, both focused on the same goal. His mother sang Italian lullabies to the granddaughter she had prayed for, while his lieutenants coordinated search patterns across the city. Emma sat curled up in Maria's lap, fighting sleep but determined to stay awake until her mother came home. She had changed into one of Marcus's old t-shirts, which hung on her like a dress, and had claimed his mother's favorite armchair as her temporary fortress. "Dad," she said quietly as Marcus paced near the window. "Mom always told me that you were the strongest person she ever knew. She said you could protect anyone if you really wanted to." Marcus stopped pacing and looked at his daughter. In her innocent faith, he saw a reflection of the man he used to be, before the world had taught him that strength meant isolation and protection meant fear. "Your mother was right about a lot of things, sweetheart. But the most important thing she did was keep you safe until I could learn how to be the father you deserve." At that moment, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. The words on the screen made his blood run cold. "Romano, Warehouse 47, Industrial District. Come alone. No weapons, no backup. You have 1 hour, or Isabella Martinez learns what happens to people who cost us money. Bring 500,000 cash." Marcus stared at the message, his mind racing through possibilities and contingencies. This wasn't just about money. $500,000 was pocket change to someone like him, easily accessible within the hour. This was about power, about forcing him into a position of vulnerability, about proving that even Marcus Romano could be brought to his knees. But as he looked at Emma sleeping peacefully in his mother's arms, Marcus realized something that his enemies had failed to understand. They thought they were dealing with the same man who had built his empire on calculated ruthlessness and emotional detachment. They had no idea that everything had changed the moment a 7-year-old girl had called him dad. Marcus Romano was no longer just a crime boss protecting his territory. He was a father fighting for his family, and that made him infinitely more dangerous than anything Detroit had ever seen. Marcus folded the phone and slipped it into his jacket pocket. The warehouse district. He knew every building there, every shadow where danger could hide. Warehouse 47 had been abandoned for 3 years, ever since the city's manufacturing jobs disappeared overseas. It was the perfect location for what the Russians had in mind. Isolated, soundproof, with multiple escape routes. He walked to his mother's antique writing desk and pulled out a sheet of paper. His handwriting, usually bold and commanding, trembled slightly as he wrote instructions for Emma's care. Bank account numbers, legal documents, the names of people who could be trusted if something went wrong tonight. "Marcus, what are you doing?" His mother's voice carried the weight of maternal intuition. "Insurance," he replied, sealing the letter in an envelope marked with Emma's name, just in case. Maria stood up carefully, leaving Emma curled in the chair with a blanket tucked around her small shoulders. She crossed the room and placed her weathered hand on her son's cheek, the same gesture she had used to comfort him when he was a boy with scraped knees and broken dreams. "You listen to me," she whispered fiercely. "That little girl has already lost 7 years with her father. Don't you dare make her lose any more." Marcus covered his mother's hand with his own. "I won't. But if I don't come back, you make sure she knows I tried. You make sure she knows I loved her from the moment I found out she existed." 20 minutes later, Marcus stood in the vault beneath his downtown office building. Stacks of cash lined the walls, organized by denomination and purpose. $500,000 was nothing compared to the fortune he had accumulated, but tonight it represented something far more valuable than money. It was the price of his daughter's future happiness. Tony appeared in the doorway, his face grim with concern. "Boss, this stinks like a setup. Let me take a team. Sweep the area first." Marcus shook his head as he stuffed bills into a black duffel bag. "They specified no backup. If they see anyone else, Isabella pays the price. And if they kill you both anyway?" Marcus paused, considering the question that had been gnawing at him for the past hour. "Then you make sure Emma is protected. You make sure she gets the education Isabella wanted for her, the life neither of us ever had." Tony's jaw tightened. In 15 years of working for Marcus, he had never seen his boss show this kind of vulnerability. The Marcus Romano he knew would have surrounded the warehouse with 50 armed men and negotiated from a position of overwhelming strength. This version, the father version, was operating on pure emotion. "There's something else, boss," Detective Chen called. "They found Isabella's purse in a dumpster 6 blocks from the warehouse. Her ID, credit cards, everything still inside except her phone." Marcus felt his stomach drop. An abandoned purse meant the kidnappers weren't planning to keep Isabella alive long enough for identification to matter. They were tying up loose ends. "Any word from our contacts inside the Russian organization?" Radio silence. Either they don't know about this operation, or someone's keeping it very quiet. Marcus hefted the duffel bag and headed for the door. Every instinct he had developed over 15 years of survival was screaming at him to reconsider, to find another way, to use the power and resources that had made him untouchable. But those same instincts had never accounted for love. They had never factored in the willingness to sacrifice everything for people who mattered more than empire or reputation. The drive to the warehouse district took 18 minutes through streets that grew progressively darker and more abandoned. Marcus's headlights cut through the industrial wasteland like searchlights, illuminating rusted equipment and broken windows. This was a graveyard of American manufacturing, where dreams had died quietly over decades of economic decline. Warehouse 47 squatted in the shadows like a concrete monster, its loading docks empty, its windows boarded up with rotting plywood. A single light glowed in what had once been the main office, a beacon that drew Marcus forward like a moth to flame. He parked 50 yards away and sat in the darkness for a moment, gathering himself for what was about to happen. In his jacket pocket, his phone vibrated with text messages from his crew, updates on search operations that no longer mattered. Emma's safety was assured. The money was ready. Isabella's rescue was now entirely dependent on his ability to walk into a trap and somehow walk out alive. Marcus stepped out of the car, the duffel bag heavy in his right hand. The November wind cut through his expensive suit, carrying the scent of decay and desperation that clung to forgotten places. His footsteps echoed off concrete and steel as he approached the warehouse's main entrance. The door stood slightly ajar, spilling yellow light onto the cracked pavement. Marcus could hear voices inside, speaking in Russian, their tone casual and confident. They thought they held all the cards. They thought Marcus Romano was just another desperate man willing to pay any price to save what he loved. They had no idea what they were about to face. Marcus pushed the door open and stepped into the warehouse. The space was vast and empty, filled with shadows that could hide a dozen armed men. Industrial lighting hung from the ceiling like mechanical spiders, most of the bulbs dark or broken. The Russians had positioned themselves in the center of the space, using overturned tables and metal drums as makeshift cover. 3 men, more than the witness descriptions had suggested, which meant they had called in reinforcements. The Kozlov brothers stood flanking a third man Marcus didn't recognize, someone older with scars that spoke of serious violence in his past. All 3 were armed, weapons visible but not immediately threatening, and there, tied to a chair between them, was Isabella. 7 years had changed her, but Marcus would have recognized her anywhere. Her dark hair was shorter now, streaked with silver that caught the harsh warehouse lighting. Her face was bruised, one eye swollen shut, but her posture remained defiant even in captivity. She wore the simple clothes of a working mother, jeans and a sweater that Emma had probably helped her pick out that morning. When Isabella saw Marcus enter the warehouse, her expression shifted from hope to horror. "Marcus, no," she whispered. "You shouldn't have come." The older Russian, apparently the leader, smiled with gold teeth that glinted in the artificial light. "Ah, the famous Marcus Romano. Not so impressive in person, are you? Just another man who bleeds when cut." Marcus set the duffel bag on the concrete floor and raised his hands to show he was unarmed. "You have your money. Release her." "Money?" The Russian laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "You think this is about money? Mr. Romano, you cost our organization $3 million when you destroyed our shipment last month. 500,000 is just, how do you say, interest payment." Marcus felt the trap closing around him, but his expression remained calm. "What do you want?" "Justice, balance. You took something from us. Now we take something from you." The Russian nodded toward Isabella. "But first, we want to understand. This woman, she is nothing special. Pretty, yes, but Detroit has many pretty women. Why does the great Marcus Romano risk everything for one coffee shop owner?" Isabella's eyes met Marcus's across the warehouse floor. In that look, he saw 7 years of regret, 7 years of wondering what might have been, 7 years of raising their daughter alone while he built an empire that meant nothing without family to share it. "She's the mother of my child," Marcus said simply. The admission seemed to surprise the Russians. They exchanged glances, rapid conversation in their native language. Marcus caught enough words to understand they were recalculating the situation. A crime boss with a secret family was valuable in ways they hadn't considered. "Interesting," the leader said finally. "A child changes everything, doesn't it? Suddenly you have something to lose that's worth more than money or territory. Tell me, Mr. Romano, what would you do to keep your daughter safe?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus realized this had never been about money or revenge for a destroyed shipment. This was about leverage. The Russians had stumbled onto something more valuable than any drug deal or protection racket. They had found Marcus Romano's weakness. "Whatever it takes," Marcus answered honestly. "Good. Then you understand the position you're in." The Russian leader pulled out a cell phone and showed Marcus the screen. A photograph of Emma, taken through the window of his mother's house less than an hour ago. "Your mother's brownstone has such large windows. Very easy to see inside." Marcus felt ice water flow through his veins. They had been watching his family while he negotiated with Detective Chen, while he planned this rescue, while he convinced himself Emma was safe. The trap was larger than just the warehouse. It encompassed everything he cared about. "Here's what happens next," the Russian continued. "You're going to call your people and tell them to stand down. All operations against Russian interests in this city will cease immediately. You're going to transfer ownership of 3 key properties to shell companies we control, and you're going to disappear from Detroit for exactly 1 year. And if I refuse?" The Russian shrugged as if the answer was obvious. "Then your daughter becomes an orphan tonight." Simple business decision. Marcus stared at Isabella, seeing his own desperation reflected in her bruised face. She mouthed 2 words that broke his heart. Save Emma. Even now, even facing her own death, Isabella's first concern was for their daughter. The woman who had sacrificed 7 years of her life to keep Emma safe was prepared to sacrifice everything else to ensure the little girl's future. But Marcus had spent 15 years learning that there was always another option, always another angle, always another way to turn weakness into strength. The Russians thought they understood him because they understood his love for Emma and Isabella. They thought love made him predictable. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Marcus reached slowly into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. The Russians tensed, weapons shifting slightly, but they allowed him to dial. The number he called wasn't Tony or Detective Chen or any of his usual contacts. "Emma, sweetheart, are you awake?" His daughter's sleepy voice came through the speaker, audible to everyone in the warehouse. "Dad, did you find Mom yet?" "I'm working on it, baby. Listen to me very carefully. Do you remember the story your mom used to tell you about the princess and the dragon?" There was a pause as Emma thought. "The one where the princess saves herself?" "That's right. Sometimes the people we love need to save themselves, but they need us to be brave first. Can you be brave for me?" "Yes, Dad." "Good girl. Now I want you to go to Grandma Maria's kitchen and look in the drawer next to the stove. There's a red button inside a little plastic box. Can you find it?" The Russians were growing agitated, realizing this wasn't the surrender call they expected. The leader gestured with his weapon, but Marcus continued speaking calmly to his daughter. "I found it, Dad. Should I push it?" "Not yet, sweetheart. Just hold it and wait for my signal. If anything scary happens, if anyone comes to the house who isn't supposed to be there, you push that button and keep pushing it until the police come. Do you understand?" "I understand. Dad, are you coming home soon?" Marcus looked at Isabella, at the Russians, at the warehouse that might become his tomb. "Soon, baby. I love you." "I love you too." Marcus ended the call and smiled at the Russian leader, whose confident expression was beginning to crack. "That red button connects directly to Detroit Police Dispatch, the FBI field office, and my lawyer's emergency line. My daughter just became the most protected little girl in Michigan." The Russian's face darkened with rage. "You think you're clever? We still have your woman. We still have you." "Yes," Marcus agreed. "But now you can't touch Emma without bringing down every law enforcement agency in the state, which means you've lost the only leverage that mattered." The warehouse fell silent, except for the distant sound of traffic and the wind rattling loose metal. Marcus could see the Russians recalculating, realizing their perfect plan had just collapsed. They could kill him and Isabella, but Emma's protection was now guaranteed by forces beyond their control. Marcus took a step forward, his hands still visible, but his posture shifting from surrender to something more dangerous. "So let's talk about what happens next, gentlemen, because the rules of this game just changed. What happened next in that warehouse changed everything, not just for Marcus Romano, but for everyone who thought they understood how power really works in this world. The Russians made one fatal mistake. They assumed that love makes a man weak. They never considered that love might make him unstoppable. Marcus Romano walked into that warehouse as a crime boss trying to save his family. He walked out as a father who had learned the difference between ruling through fear and protecting through strength. Isabella was rescued. Emma got her mother back. And the Romano family finally became whole after 7 years of separation. But here's what really matters. Sometimes the smallest acts of courage change everything. A 7-year-old girl stopping a luxury car. A mother sacrificing everything to keep her daughter safe. A man choosing love over empire. These moments remind us that even in the darkest places, even in the most dangerous situations, family is the only thing that truly makes us powerful. The next time you see someone take a stand for the people they love, remember Emma Romano. Remember that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask for help. And remember that real strength isn't about how much fear you can create. It's about how much love you're willing to fight for. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories that prove humanity still exists in the most unexpected places.